Here we go. Back in 1990, we had an American horror comedy anthology film called The Willies. It was written and directed by Brian Peck, starring Sean Astin.
Yes.
I never know how to. Is it Astin or Austin? I don't know. Whatever.
It's
Astin. Like he's an ass. He's an ass.
Yeah.
It is what, 3? No. How many? What is it? We got the prologue. We got Bad Apples. We have an interlude. We have Flyboy. The epilogue. So I guess really three stories with three.
Framing narrative.
Three framing narratives. So three different. Go ahead. Yeah. 3 different shows. Let's see here. It starts out with Camping Out. We have Tennessee Fricassee, Haunted Estate, and Poodle Souffle. All kinds of fun stuff. Bad Apples, Flyboy. It's just when it comes to fun horror anthologies that you can show to your kids, The Willies is fun.
So, this was the first one that we gave to Irish Demon.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, ID, what was your takeaway on this one of the 4 that we watched?
Well, in a word, it was awful. Like the no, that's not quite fair. Yeah.
In a word, it was awful.
Look, the first
That's more than a word.
actually. It's a good point. I gotta say, right, the stories were brilliant, right? So the first story was so first there was the kids in the forest. That was I was a child actor, so I mean, as an actor, that was awful. Like the acting was atrocious. Like, hey, little Jimmy kind of stuff, and it was just it was horrible. But then the first story was actually acted quite well. The boy in school with the custodian turning into this like child-eating monster and stuff like that. I felt like the teacher was unnecessarily cruel. She was a horrible woman, but when she got dragged up through the vent and the blood started pissing down, I was like, "Yep, this is my kind of movie. I like this." This like it was a good soft start, I gotta say. I thought the guy who played the custodian was absolutely brilliant. I thought he did an awesome job. He just hit the nail on the head with it. Then there was the Flyboy story. At first, I was like, "What in the name of God is going on here?" But I actually really got into it.
I have to ask. That kid was fucking extreme. Like that, like the
Gordy was
that not creepy as fuck?
Oh man, he was a beast. Like Gordy was that kid's name, and like he was badass, man. Like he did not care what anybody thought. He was like, he was just like, even his dad was like this horrible guy calling him a fat boy. He was just am I allowed to swear on this show?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Oh yeah,
What?
he was like,
Can you watch your fucking mouth? This is a fucking kids show.
yes, sir. But
Fucking
his
hell.
dad was like, "Oh, this fat little shit is never going to amount to anything." The kid just started, he's basically just like, "Fuck you, Dad. I'm gonna go play with my flies, motherfucker." But yeah, it was a weird story. The production quality was much better than I thought it would be. Now the monster in the first scene was a bit, obviously, not very good in terms of what would you say, the graphics or whatever. Was it a graphic or was it? I wasn't sure if it was like stop motion or puppet or what.
It was actually a combination puppetry and actually an actual person. So whenever you saw the head and kind of like the neck and the torso of it, that was all done. Because if you'll notice, there were moments when you saw the body but you couldn't see the arms. It was just kind of there. It was like that was puppetry. But in close-ups, you had the head, which was still the puppet, and then you had somebody underneath it, like off frame, with their arms done up to look like the monster, so that you still get like the finger articulations, and it makes it look more real.
We call that practical effects.
Yes, it was all practical.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of liked it.
Even when Gordy had his arm, when Gordy had his arms chewed off by the
that was awesome.
by the giant fly.
It was kind of funny though, because when he got his arms chewed off, it was so clear that he was just like this. Like you could literally see like his, it's like Gordy. It's like, how did your kids get so big so fast, dude? But yeah, it was no, overall it was really fun. It was a really fun movie, and you know what? The interesting thing about it is finding a kid like that in those days would not have been easy. Like in the early '90s, kids just weren't that big either, and certainly not confident enough to act like that. So I thought he did an awesome job. I don't know if was his speech impediment real or was that acted. I'm not sure.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find any details on it. I think it was so natural. The kid's either like super talented or, but I honestly thought that was the way that was his own speech.
Yeah.
Which the thing is, if he acted that, that's really good. If we're like, we don't know if it's real or not.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Because like, what I liked about that as well was, and similarly to the, oh my god, my brain has gone numb. What was the one with the guys in the forest jail?
The
Night Feeders, was it?
Oh, that was the
Night Feeders.
Yeah. So similar to that, I like the fact that the main characters were just very real, like an overweight kid with a speech impediment, rather than just your typical Hollywood-looking kid. The same with the other one, the kind of semi-illiterate older Southern guy turning out to be the hero at the end of it all. It's just a nice change from like that chiseled Hollywood look, essentially. So I know that's not the horror movie element of it, but I actually like that it was a little bit different. But yeah, I really like that one.
I did like in the Bullies one, in the Bad Apples one, is that I know the minute you watch that, you messaged me that this kid Danny is a beast. He just fed his enemies to this,
and he just stood there.
He slips out of the bathroom, and then he pushes the locker over to block the door so they can't get out. It
was the water fountain. Yeah. He pushed
the water
over
fountain. That is fucking hardcore.
Kid is like, that's cool. Just like, please, Danny. And then he's like, oh yeah, fucking enjoy that, bitch. Tie me up now, bitch. And yeah, so I was like, oh my god, this is pretty brutal. And then they did this close cut into his face, and he's just like completely like stony. And I'm like, what a beast, man. That kid's a beast. But that story was fun, actually. And I like that it all took place in a really small set. It reminded me of my stage days where you have like very little room to work with. And yeah, the three bullies that they chose, it was like they pulled bullies straight out of like Saved by the Bell or something. And it was like, hey, what does a bully wear? And it's like, yeah, that was a bit cringe. But like, it's like the bully with the fucking like skull and crossbones shirt from like Toy Story or whatever. But other than that, it was fun. It was really, really fun. I'm guessing it didn't have a huge budget, did it?
Well, it was hard to find some information on the film. I don't think. Yeah, there was. I'm assuming a small budget.
So the thing that got me, well, I'm glad that you enjoyed at least parts of it, though. Yeah, but
I
wanted to start you off kind of. So I wanted to throw you a softball. So the one thing that struck me and what got me on this is that, and it leads to some questions because I wasn't able to actually find a ton of behind the scenes information about this because there had to have been some sort of like marketing or marketing strategy utilized because number one, it's got Sean Astin in it. So he's like at the time that he's post Goonies. He's already got a bunch of work on his belt, and he's related to John Astin, who was the original Gomez in the Addams Family, same family. So Sean Astin is there. He's obviously the biggest name star that they've got. And then of course, there's a couple other individuals we see them crop up. We've seen them just be roster actors here and there. But the thing that got me was in the
Didn't they have Kirk Cameron in it?
In the Gordy story, yes. In the Flyboy story, fucking Growing Pains shows up. So like he was like because he's having a dream and he dreams that that he sees an episode of Growing Pains on the TV, and then Kirk Cameron and Tracy Gold from the show are there. So they cast them to be in this, and at one point Kirk Cameron directly addresses it through the television, and so maybe it was a timing thing, or I'm not sure. They attached the names to these because at the time Growing Pains was a massive show on television. So I thought that was weird. having that kind of cross promotion thing. And I couldn't find anything behind why they would do that other than to try and just market the film a little bit better. Yeah. But it did not get past me, the joke, because at the beginning of the movie, during the framing narrative, they're trying to tell gross out stories and gross each other out. And Sean Astin says, "I've got one to tell you, but I don't think you're gonna. I don't think you're gonna believe it." And he's like, and the other kid is like, "Oh, it's not that one where you and your friends found that pirate ship in a cave, is it?"
Yeah.
So, and I was like, I had to stop, and be like, "Hey, yeah."
Yeah.
I mean, given the time, this was a few years after the Goonies. So I'm just kind of it was just weird seeing these individuals show up in a film like this. So established names, which was odd.
There was one part in it. I don't know if it was like intentionally bad or what, but where the lady eats the fried rat and it starts like zooming in and out of her head. Was that like overly dramatic, intentionally bad, I wonder, or was it just a poor choice?
No, that's a throwback to literally
early
old
movies?
school, like to early films, to early horror films, where it would be like that whole thing where the camera kind of comes in. It's just an old throwback technique.
So yeah, it was something. It's weird looking at it now, but back then, because it makes all these callbacks, and these references are super fresh at the time, and then to us, it's like it's weird because the older the film gets, the less people will actually get the reference. Because I'm pretty sure there are people listening to our podcast who've never seen Growing Pains. And
this is true.
Now
they just know Kirk Cameron because of his Ray Comfort, bananas thing.
Yeah, the whole
Kirk Cameron because of his everybody's got to believe in Jesus.
So, but yeah, at the time, man, Kirk Cameron was.
He's doing different kinds of horror films now.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
But yeah, at the time, he was legit like one of the biggest TV stars out there. Pretty much one of the controlling interests on that show, Growing Pains. So it's it was strange, and I really do. And at the time that this came out, because this is 1990 when this hit, and anthology films were kind of a thing. They'd become a thing in the 80s. It was like, let's tell multiple stories and have the framing narrative. And this became more common because as technology got better, we could set up we could set it up visually better because cameras got better and you could move. And as productions got more technical and more advanced, they were able to do it a lot more efficiently. So we got more of them. And of course, horror stories are always like Tales from the Dark Side. The movie also came out in 1990.
It did seem like it was a decade of the anthology.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that this one, while it was very Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
It seemed a lot like that Erie, Indiana, and what was the other one? It came on right after Erie, Indiana. It was supposed to be a little bit more serious.
Oh, it's been so long. It was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
So, and yes, Sir
anyway,
Sir Little Wolf says in the chat, stuff like, Creepshow 2, all of these.
You got things like Cat's Eyes,
Cat's Eye,
Stories, Twilight Zone the movie. Like you just had this thing of just these anthologies that just came out. They were just big. They kind of trailed off kind of in the early 90s. And I like to say maybe with as more short films became more available out there, a lot of these could be separate things and there could be a little market for it because with these anthology films, it's like you can come up with a story, but you don't know if you can flesh it out for an entire 90-minute feature. And so that way you can go like, okay, well, I can do 3 or I can do 4 20-minute films or 4 30-minute films. Have a little narrative. The cat goes from house to house or something like that. They kind of tie it together. That way I get these little snippets of these little stories versus one story, one group of characters. You have to follow them all the way through. So that's why I'm a fan.
That's a big thing because for any people interested in the chat, or any of our listeners out there interested in filmmaking, the best thing about anthologies, the reason they were so popular, and you definitely because is that it's also a matter of budgeting and scheduling. Because scheduling people for an entire film you shoot for like, it's going to be like an hour and a half to 2 hours long. You're basically sucking up people's time for almost, a month to 2 months. And everybody's got to be on point. Everybody's got their schedules, and it can be, the logistics of that can be very, very hard. When you do an anthology, that means you have set individuals for your framing narrative, and the framing narrative is only like 20 minutes, which means I only need them for like a 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Okay, and I can space those out. And even if the framing narrative is very limited, that means I'm shooting on one set, and I've got these guys, they've got their lines, and I'm only shooting at like 1 or 2 angles. Like in this particular one, that whole framing narrative with the 3 kids in the tent, and then the dad, the dad comes and checks on them at the end. That was a dark set that was one location, one tent, one camera with some zoom ins to get your close-ups, and that's it. And as long as the kids know their fucking lines, you're solid. You can knock that out in a week, and then you can just let those kids go, and then you can work on your next one. And this makes budgeting and scheduling very, very easy. So
it does, because a lot of times if you want big names, say like Kirk Cameron at the time, actors get paid by the day.
Yes.
So for X amount of days. So you can keep his stuff to 1 day of filming, he can come in, knock out all his lines. You save so much on budget stuff, so much. And in a lot of these films, like some of them maybe even use like multiple directors, or they'll have like a second unit, so they can even be filming maybe 2 of these stories at the same time, and it works because they're not using the same sets, they're not using the same actors.
Yeah.
And so some films will do one at a time, some films, other films will do it at the same time.
Oh yeah, and given the fact that the growing pains shot just for that very, very small scene when he's looking at the television in his nightmare, that was on the set. So most likely the producers of this one were probably producers or executive producers on the actual TV show. And if that's all you really have to do is just catch them, because not every, even though you're maybe scheduled to go a certain amount of time, a lot of times on a TV set you may not use all that time, because something may get delayed, or something, or you may finish early. Maybe you knocked it all out, so you can work in those kind of open spaces an opportunity to film something else, and that can fall into that day. If you can fit that into that day, boom, then you just got to pay them for the work they, especially if the production company is the same. You can fit that into that paycheck and be like, you're going to be credited for this, and maybe we'll give you a little bonus. But you can feel, given that makes it super, super easy, and also reduces budget, because a movie like this is not going to be not going to see a huge ROI. The return on investment is not going to be big. It's just going to be, there you go. Oh, hey, look, it's Kirk Cameron. This is popular. And then it may spread a little bit of word of mouth, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly. If they're sitting there, they're spending say $500,000 or say $1 million to make it. If they come back and turn around $3 or $4 million, they're going to be happy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, especially on something like that. That's I don't know. I wouldn't call it a run and shoot, but it's definitely a very quick production.
Yeah.
It's interesting, actually. I looked into one of the movies on this lineup that I actually really, really enjoyed was Ghost in the Machine, and I just did a bit of brief research into it, and they lost a lot of money. They lost like $7 million on this on that movie. I was really surprised by that, because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You didn't think they spent $7 million on that movie?
No, they spent 12 million on it, and they only got 5 back. And I was like, dang, that's actually a really good movie in my opinion. But Rotten Tomatoes gave it 10 or 11%.
Yeah, there's something to that as far as what you can do on the back end. So it's box office when it first released probably only saw that, but there is still life for technically, because on DVD sales or on residuals, whatever network picks up and continues to play it, there is still a generation there. So over time, it may actually break even, but it may take 10 years for it to do it.
Yes, yeah. It says here that it's by the end of the run, it grossed $5 million. So yeah, the first opening weekend was nearly $2 million, which actually isn't bad for a smaller movie, I guess. But yeah, damn, they would have lost a lot of money. I'd say it would be hard to recoup, $7 million over the years. But I was surprised it was made in 1993. Actually, I thought the quality was really good.
But yeah, in a film like this first one, this anthology, if you can attach somebody to it, if you can, like if your production company happens to be like, hey, we've also got our our fingers over in this one, maybe we can sneak over a big name and we can throw it in here. So that always helps, and you can pretty much just go word of mouth. But anthologies are really, really cool like that. You especially when you bring in multiple directors, because that does happen sometimes. You get a taste of different directors, different directorial styles, different groups that come together like that, and I love it when that happens, because it definitely adds a bit more variety to what you're watching and keeps everything fresh.
Bit of flavor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
My favorite non-horror anthology was Four Rooms.
Oh God, that movie's so amazing.
It's so great, yeah. Eli Roth, Tim Roth, fucking idiot. Tim Roth really glues. Yeah, it's a big fuck up. But Tim Roth really glues that whole movie together.
Just the way when Quentin Tarantino's explaining that shit to him, he's just
he chops that finger and just fucking takes off with the money.
Take the money and walk the fuck out.
Yep, that's so great. Speaking of, so this is our call to action to the audience. What is your favorite horror anthology? Let us know in the side chat, or if you're watching this post or listening to it on the podcast, you can email us at weekendhorror@gmail.com.